Hi everyone, thanks for coming back to watch the last video in this series about UAM CorpusTool. I want to show you the statistics screen in this video, and I wanted first to emphasize that I'm not an expert on this program, and there's lots of other things it can do that I haven't gone over. So I hope if you find it interesting that you'll do some research on your own. There's documentation online if you Google. The program itself comes with some documentation in this help screen. It's not all complete. There's some videos on YouTube by other people, and again, like I've said, it is a free program, so there are some quirks, some things that don't quite work right. But if you're patient, it really is a wonderful tool for annotating text. So for this part, I was going to show you my thesis project. I'm sorry about the blurring on the side. I just have to hide anything related to particular files for my IRB approval. But basically, as you can see, there's more than we were working with. We had one file before, and now we've got 70. If we go all the way down, so there's a lot more to see. With this project, there's 4 layers, and these two, AutoCode and Stanford Parse. I just wanted to mention briefly that if you're interested in automated text tagging, Stanford University has this program that's been out for a little while. The Stanford, well, there's a tagger and a parser, and as far as I understand, the tagger identifies words as being a certain part of speech, and then the parser is a little more sophisticated. It goes into the grammar of a sentence, identifying which phrases are like the subject of the sentence, the object of the sentence, and things like that. So as an example here, I've put the sentence, I love cats, and if I click parse, kind of like if you've ever taken a linguistics class and had to do tree diagrams, it kind of does that, but with parentheses instead of the branching tree lines, I guess. So, but it breaks the sentence apart into its constituents, and so this is very interesting. And if you're interested in doing it with UAM CorpusTool, it connects to this automatically when you create a layer. I don't know if you remember, but in the second video when we were looking at how to create a layer, there were some options where you could ask for an automatic tagging layer. That's basically what these are. It goes through, it connects to the Stanford website, and it does the tagging for you, and then you can look at it and analyze it. So for my project, I used, kind of like we did a first language category in the sample project, I created this layer, which I mainly used for first language. And then this was my error categories, and I used this book, which I already mentioned to you guys, but Janet Lane and Ellen Lane's Writing Clearly and Editing book, which is a text for advanced ESL students, and it's divided up into chapters by common errors that appear in ESL student academic writing. So it made sense for me to use their categories because they're kind of they're designed around the needs of a teacher. So I used that as the basis. I had to make some adjustments, but I basically used that. So if we go back here and look at it, I'll show you really quick. So here are the layers. So here is the lane and range. I'm going to zoom out a little so you can see it. The glosses take up a lot of space, but so you can see there's a lot more subcategories than there were in the Dana Ferris scheme that we used. So I needed a little more detail for my project, and so that's that. The categories correspond to the kinds of things that any grammar book would have, like passive voice, conditionals, relative clauses. So you could basically create a layer with the categories that are included in whatever book you're using. I'm going to close that. Okay, so I want to show you a little bit about the statistics screen. I'm going to go there. The most simple analysis is just asking the program how many errors are there of each kind, which sounds simple, but when you get lots of categories like this, it's pretty hard to keep track of it by hand. So I'm going to ask it for there's three options. You can either describe the entire corpus, you can compare parts of the corpus, which I will show you in a minute, or you can describe each file. If you're doing if you're doing research, you probably will need to describe each file. And I'm not going to click this because, as I said, this program is a little quirky, and sometimes if you ask it to do something very intensive, it'll kind of crash and break, and you just have to reopen it and do it again, and then it might work. So I'm not going to do this because it sometimes crashes. It just takes up a lot of its resources to try to do each file separately. But you need that usually for a study, and then you would export your data to Excel, where you can do a lot more manipulation, sorting, and using formulas in Excel, whatever you need. I'm going to do this first one, which is going to look at the entire corpus. Over here, I'm going to click feature coding, which is going to give me information about each tag that I created. And then I'm going to click show. And then, so these are the top level categories that I created. And most of them have subcategories, which are down below. So for example, number 2, verb form has, there's 20 of these types of error in the corpus. If I go down below, within that category, there's these subcategories: main verb, phrase, wrong, static, stative, passive, auxiliary, and main verb, infinitive. So it cuts off a little because there's not enough space, but yeah, I don't think you can make it wider. Anyway, it tells you how many errors are in each of those subcategories, so you get all the information for the overall corpus here. And if you want to look, like say you're creating a handout for your students on, let's see, maybe on transitive verbs. So if I go to, let's click that. There's only 13, but we can. If you click it, those little blue numbers are actually links. So now I've been taken out to my corpus, and it's going to show me the examples from my text. And if you recall from the previous video, the older version of this program allowed you to select an empty space and tag it. The newer version does not. I did a lot of the work in the older version and then imported it here, so you can see that some of these I had tagged in empty space basically. I'm going to change the context to 9 so I can see more words to the left and the right, and click show again. So it just shows me the error and what's around it, and so I could use these to create a worksheet or some kind of activity for students using authentic examples drawn from their own text rather than from, from the book or something like that. Unfortunately, there's not an easy way to copy and paste from here. If you click these individual links, it will take you to the essay, and from there you can copy and paste. That's another thing I wish were a little easier about this program, because this is such a useful feature for teachers to look up the error that they want to go over and then draw real life examples from their own students or from previous classes of students. But anyway, to me this is still much quicker than maybe going through a stack of hard copy papers or a bunch of Word documents trying to find the feature that I'm interested in. So I want to go back to the statistics screen. When you do the statistics screen, it kind of bounces back and forth between the search tab and the statistics like automatically. Okay, so here I am back here. That gave us numbers, counts for the entire corpus. And then I also wanted to show you, let's say you wanted to compare subgroups. So maybe, for example, first language group. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click compare several data sets. And so it gives me 2 by default, set 1 and set 2. It's still set to error because that's what I'm studying in this project, was errors. But for the sets, I'm going to make a little bit of a change. I'm going to go to file characteristics, which had all my languages. I'm going to pick maybe Hindi. And it kind of guesses at what I'm doing, and it says, do you want to create sets for each feature in the same system? And I don't want to have a column for every language right now, so I'm going to say no. And then I'm going to pick another language, like maybe another one that we had a lot of, maybe French. Okay. And one other thing, when you work with the corpus, when you start to compare things, you have to be careful. Like, it didn't matter so much for the overall, but when I start to take subsets of the data and compare, each essay is a different length. Like, some are really short, like 100 words, some are like up to 500 or more words. So if the 100-word essay has 10 errors and the 500-word essay has 10 errors, it's kind of different because the student who had the 500 words wrote a lot more. So you want to be comparing apples to apples. So you want to create a percentage or a ratio of some kind instead of comparing the raw figures. So over here, and you can't see it, it's going off the screen because I have such a tiny screen here. Let me see if I can show it. Where it says counting, I'm going to click per 1,000 tokens. And I realize you can't see the word tokens, it went off screen, but it says per 1,000 tokens. And one little thing to keep in mind, tokens, it counts punctuation there. I was getting frustrated when I was checking the math on this because it wasn't giving me the same word counts that it should have, and I realized it was using, periods and commas and things as tokens. But regardless of that, it still gives you a rough comparison of how many errors in a comparable way for these two groups. So I'm going to click that. And because I made that change, I need to click show again. Let me move this back. So click show. So now what it's doing is it's showing me Hindi speaking students, the French speaking students, and in this column where it says per 1,000 words, that's comparable. Whereas this column maybe not comparable because their essays may have been very different in length. So if I go down, it does a little bit of statistics in here. I wouldn't completely trust it. I feel better exporting the data. So this little diskette picture gives you the option to save any of your data into a format that you can import into Excel, play with it, and you can also put it into another program like SPSS is the statistics software that we were trained in my program. It's a social sciences statistics package, so if you want to do correlations or t-tests or ANOVA, whatever it is that you're trying to do, that you can take these numbers and go there with them. But just as a rough rule of thumb kind of a thing, it's comparing these and it's telling me that these two groups of students have a significant difference in their passive voice errors. So you can see even though it's 2 and 2 overall, but if you do per 1,000 tokens, you get these numbers. So this just gives you kind of like a ballpark idea of what differences between groups. And you can do this with any different classes, different students that are in a different level, first language, what country they're from, any variable like that you could compare. I can add more here if I click the plus sign. Maybe we could put in Chinese. And then click show again. The program is only able to handle statistics for 2 groups, so that disappeared, but again, I can take this to another program. So now again, you can see, so in verb tense, the Chinese speaking group was making a lot more of this type of error per 1,000 words than the Hindi or the French. So this might give you just a really rough idea of things that might be helpful to a particular first language group. And then again, if I want to see close-up examples, I just click on the blue number and that's going to take me to the sentences that had those kinds of errors. So just for time, I'm going to stop there, but I want to reiterate again that this program just has a lot in it, a lot that I haven't really learned. The automated tagging is fascinating, so I would encourage anyone interested to explore. And I hope you have learned a little bit from watching these videos. Thank you for bearing with me, and good luck with your work. I've put this on a website that has a comments area. If you have any comments or suggestions, I would be very happy to hear those as well. So thank you so much.